What's up, passionate Pokemon players? We're here with our next deck demo, and we are going to do a Ho-Oh deck this time. So we're moving out of the first 150 Pokemon, which we did with our first 4 decks, and we're going into the Johto region. So we're going with Ho-Oh, which is one of the last numerical 100 Pokemon, but also in many ways we're still kind of sticking to our roots with the first 150, or the first region, because remember that Ho-Oh was the first Pokemon that Ash saw, right? Or one of those first ones on his journey. So this one's a really interesting deck. I think it's a good one to follow up on, because we did recently do Venusaur, and this one's kind of a similar take on Venusaur, with using Alolan Exeggutor to grab energies and attach a bunch of energies, more so onto our attacker, which is going to be Ho-Oh. But we'll see how this one works. This one's a little bit more of a work in progress. I don't think it's quite ready to go out and kill it at your locals like maybe the Venusaur, which was a little bit of a pleasant surprise, but I think it'll still do well. So let's get into what it's looking like. But before we do so, of course, I always have to let you know, if you like what you're seeing, hit that subscribe button so you can join the Hawk's Nest. If you're not quite ready to fly yet, just hit that like button, leave a comment, let us know what you think, so that you can hopefully have a show up into your algorithm and keep watching a little bit, right? Starting off, as always, with the Pokemon in the deck, we have Exegute from the Surging Sparks newest set, and it's going to be using its Precocious Evolution. So we wanted to get that out there first. I've got 3 of those in the deck, so that we can get it out as quickly as possible, evolve that into the next one, which I'm only including 2 of in the deck, the Alolan Exeggutor Ex. This one's a Dragon-type Pokemon, so it won't have a weakness, which is nice. Its move that we're trying to use here is Tropical Frenzy for 150, but the real thing is attaching any number of basic energy cards from your hand to your Pokemon in any way you like. Alright, so that is really key. Unlike the Venusaur deck, we can, as you'll see, we can use the Swinging Spin move, because we are going to have a ground energy in there, but it's not going to be something we're kind of really aiming to use. It'll kind of be a bonus in there. Just flip a coin. If heads, knock out your opponent's active basic. If tails, they're benched basic. So either way we can knock out either way we can knock out a basic Pokemon if they have one, but like I said, it's not something we're really trying to use, and we'll see why. Radiant Greninja, which is an obvious choice. We've got a bunch of energy in the deck. We're pulling the energy out, and we want to be able to that's going to be our draw engine, right? Additionally, I actually just was in a match while I'm kind of testing this deck and refining it. We can potentially use Moonlight Shuriken. It could be an option if we really need to in this deck. Now this is really the bread and butter of the deck, the Ho-Oh-V. This is our attacker. I've got 4 of them in there. Now I've been trying to build a Ho-Oh deck for quite some time, probably about a year now, because it's a good Pokemon. You never really see it live. It's got a super interesting move. First off, its attack is Rainbow Burn. You need 4 energies, 4 colorless. Right, so you can use any energy, but it does 30 more damage for each type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. So now we're starting to get the idea of the Exeggutor. The problem with this Pokemon is it's super hard to get all of those energies attached. On its own, attaching per turn can take up to 4 turns to attach energy, and then it only does 30 more for each type attached. So if you attach 2 grass and 2 water, it's only going to be dealing 60 more. It has to be a different type in order to deal more damage. So it's really hard to find a deck that will work with that too. You almost need like an all colorless deck, or maybe all 2 types. My earliest iteration of this deck was playing with the Noivern EX, which used the Psychic and the Shadow or Dark energy. I did okay. I took that one to locals, and I think I had like a 500 record with it, so I didn't do terribly. It just didn't quite feel like it could hang like I needed it to. I even had an Oinkologne EX in there, and was just really going off of the colorfulness and the rainbow and all of that, which is nice. But what I was doing there was using its ability of reviving flame. So my goal in that case was to discard the Ho-Oh and the energy, and then just bring him back with everything attached. And then during that time frame, I'm attacking with Oinkologne or with the Noivern EX from there too. But it just wasn't working. And the problem is, you can use Reviving Flame, which puts this Pokemon on your bench from the discard pile and up to 4 basic energies from the discard pile to it too, right? Sounds really good. You can get it, you get all 4 attached. If that's the case, you're dealing 120 with just the 4. So in essence, you can be dealing 220 base. The problem is, if you use this ability, your turn ends. So it's really tough, because by the time you're going to get those 4 different energies in the discard, we're at a point in the game where we can't be wasting a turn not attacking. So this is what made it really hard. So what's good about this Alolan Exeggutor Ex is if you can get all those energies in hand, you can essentially use this move and attach all 4 to a benched Ho-Oh. And there's different ways of doing that. So now it kind of works. I've had some mixed results online so far, but I feel like just in the past few matches I've really optimized it with a few cards that we're going to talk about too. But let's get into the last few Pokemon. We need a good support to the Radiant Greninja. Is a pretty good draw engine, of course, but it needs energy. So the other thing I want to do is get a Pidgey, 2 Pidgey and 2 Pidgeot EX, right? So it's 2 and 2. Not extremely reliable to pull them out, but the good thing is we're going to have that quick search, and sometimes you need really specific cards to kind of make this work. I'll give a few previews here. Some of the trainers we have are Lady, we're getting Earthen Vessels, we're having even a Kieran in there. So you'll see some of those trainers, and some of them you specifically need to kind of keep this deck moving and grooving, because it can kind of get stuck if you don't have the Alolan Exeggutor in your active or enough energy in hand, even if you do have it in active. Right? So there's some of the issues on it. So anyway, let's jump into some of those supporter cards. So these trainer cards are really geared around getting energy in hand so that we are ready to attach those energies. And if we aren't even ready to attach, maybe with the Alolan Exeggutor, we're at least getting the type of energies that we need. Like for example, we do need the water and the grass to attach to the Exeggutor. And then we're also making sure we need different types and not attaching the same one twice to any of our Ho-Ohs. So Earthen Vessel is going to be your easiest one to do that. We discard one and we grab any 2 we like, right? Nest Ball, of course, we need to get the Pokemon we need on bench, especially our Radiant Greninja. We're actually not running any Poffins in this deck, because our main ones that we're grabbing are going to be the Greninja, the Ho-Ohs. The only thing that would actually work here for the Poffins would be the Pidgey or the Execute. So we're just going 3 Nest Balls here, and then we're hoping that it's enough to get us. The good thing is, with all of these cards, it's pretty easy to thin this deck out enough to get decently what you want. Okay, then we got Night Stretcher, able to pull energy back from our discard pile. On demand, you can pull Pokemon you want too, like the Exeggutor if he somehow gets KO'd before we can do what we gotta do, or the Execute, but we're gonna run 3 of those. Prime Catcher, I find is just a good one of making sure that we can get ourselves a good retreat if we need it, and then also, of course, able to pull our opponent back in. I really don't like any other A-Spec this time. I usually have like kind of other options, but I'm really thinking Prime Catcher is the way to go. Let me know in the comments if you think differently after going through the whole deck list here, right? Rare Candy, I'm going to go with 3 of these rare candies, just kind of helping us make sure that we're able to pull them for our Pidgey and Pidgeot EX. I do think it's a little bit odd that we only have 2 of the Pokemon but 3 rare candies, but if we don't need them, we can always use them for Earthen Vessels and superior energy retrievals and things like that. But I'm going to run 3 of them just because I'm running 3 of pretty much all of the rest. Superior energy retrieval, again, 3 of these. the one thing about that I'm seeing is that energies are going into discard because we're using our Radiant Greninja. And sometimes we could kind of run out pretty quickly, especially if just one Ho-Oh gets knocked out. We may have 4 or 5 energies attached to that, so we need to grab them back for our next one. Ultra Ball, of course, we want 3 of these. If I could, I would put 4. Don't quite have enough room for 4 of them, so we're going to go with 3, helping us really pull what we need. Oftentimes, that's going to be your Pidgeot or your Alolan Exeggutor if you don't want to risk your Execute getting into the active and don't have the energy, or for whatever reason. You're rarely going to use it on him, but, you know, it's there. Just let you pull what you need. Boss's Orders, we got 3 of those. No reason to explain. Now, Crispin, this one I think really helps the deck. Even without the, if we had the Alolan Exeggutor, without these next 2 trainers, I think this deck just wouldn't work at all. The good thing about the Crispin, right, search for up to 2 basics, reveal them, 1 into hand, attach others to the Pokemon. So we can use this to grab our grass and water a lot of times, just to get ready, get our Exeggutor EX ready to go and load it up. Or we can even use it to load up our Ho-Oh with 2 different types of energies. A lot of times you may even be able to pull everything you need. Like 5 energies, you could get 5 attached or even more to that Ho-Oh with the Crispin. So pretty good, I like this one. Now this one I think is really cool, the Kieran. It's from Twilight Masquerade, actually, and it was a card I've been paying close attention to. Like, this can fit somewhere. This can fit somewhere. And I really like how this one goes. Initially, I had 3 switch cards in here. And I was a little bit hesitant because this is a supporter card, right? So switch isn't. So if you use a supporter, you can't use this. But it gives you the 2 options. Switch your active with one of your benched, or during this turn, attacks used by your Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's EX or V, right? So this can be super key for Ho-Oh, who's already doing 30 per energy. But sometimes, especially because for the most part, I think it's pretty easy to get 5 energies attached to a Ho-Oh, which is going to get you 250, right? You get 150 for the 5 plus the base 100. Not quite enough to KO a lot of things. 280, now that brings us up to where pretty much any stage 1 EX is going to get knocked out, except maybe the Alolan Exeggutor, right? So that's a good option, and I do find myself not always using all of my switches. So if I had the option of using this as a supporter, a lot of times 2 supporters, like once I'm done and I don't have energies in deck, Crispin and Lady become useless. So I don't use a lot of supporters unless it's Boss's Orders. So I love this card for this deck. And I think it really takes it because it helps us get that last little push of damage that we need. Now here's my other one, Lady, another card. It was funny because in my earlier iteration of the Ho-Oh deck, I had taken this one out, and then I remembered, oh man, Lady, like we need to re-add this card. We get 4 basic energies, any of them that we want. So that's gonna, like if we've got the Exeggutor in our active, ready to go, this is the best card you can get. Because you're going to pull those 4, you're going to use the Exeggutor's attack and attach all 4 of them to your Ho-Oh. Then maybe next turn, you're going to, boom, use this one to swap that Exeggutor in. Or sometimes what I even do, to be quite honest, I just let the Exeggutor die and then I'm starting to load up a second Ho-Oh already. So that, you got options here. You got options. Now another thing I really like here is the Bravery Charm. I've got 3 in here. I kind of wish I had 4. I guess if there was one other A-Spec you would consider, it might be the Hero's Cape on that Ho-Oh, because we do know that it doesn't have a ton of HP as a basic, but adding 50 brings you to 280, so it gives you a little bit more wiggle room in terms of not getting one-shot. If we were up to 330 with the Hero's Cape, it may be a good idea, but definitely Bravery Charm, and I think the Hero's Cape is less useful because we may be already throwing a Bravery Charm onto our Ho-Oh. So that's pretty much it for the trainers, but we need to talk about energies. Now, energies though, let's just jump into it. So we basically have this, right? So I've got 12 energy in the deck, and it still doesn't feel like enough, but I just don't think I can sacrifice anything else, and then I feel like any more are gonna give us times where we've just got too many energy again. But basically what I do is I got at least one of each type, right? That way we're gonna get a good spread going, but because I need the grass and the water the most on demand, I'm gonna go with 3 of those. So it's the first time we talk about energy in here really in depth, but that's what we've got going. To be honest, I was a little bit lazy in terms of, which ones I get. I should probably get all shiny ones in there, but that's okay. That's all right. The strategy of this deck is get energy in hand as fast as possible. So the supporter card Lady is going to be your best friend here because you could pull up to 4 energy from your deck. If you have an Earthen Vessel and you're not Earthen Vesseling away one of those energies, that can give you potentially 6 energies in one turn into hand. And if you've got your Alolan Exeggutor ready to go, then you can load up all of those energies onto your Ho-Oh-V. Right, so that is going to be key. So you get the energy in hand, get your Alolan Exeggutor into active as quickly as possible, load it up with energies, and then attack with your Ho-Oh. Whether that's going to be switching him out, or sometimes letting your Exeggutor just get knocked out and taking those 2 prizes if you're not able to do it. But the good thing is you're also going to be hitting with the Exeggutor as he dies. He's got 300 HP. So he's going to take between 2 and 3 turns to take out anyway on average, right? And then from there, in order to keep this going, you really need, as soon as you get that first Ho-Oh loaded up, you need to be thinking about what do you need to do to get the second one going. Because a lot of times, if he's already going to have 4 energy, and you may have 5, not 5, but you may have a couple energy in your discard already using your Radiant Greninja as a draw engine. So how are you going to be retrieving them from discard? Night Stretcher is one of your best friends there for that, or then Superior Energy Retrieval, especially later in the game when all of those energies are gone. Now, another focus from there, probably even as soon as you get your first Ho-Oh going, the biggest priority is probably getting your Pidgeot out there, because you want to be able to quick search anything that you need, whether it's a Crispin or whether it's a Superior Energy Retrieval, so that you can get your next one going. So that's really the key to this deck, is like those 4 things: energy in hand, Alolan Exeggutor, retrieving from discard, and then Pidgeot, right? Simple. At least it sounds so. Strengths and weaknesses of this deck. It's for the most part pretty easy to get your first attacker set up. You get your Exeggutor out, you get your Ho-Oh on bench, you get the right energies, and boom, we're ready to go. It's also pretty easy to thin the deck, with Lady pulling out 4 energies, and then Earthen Vessels pulling out 2 energies. It's pretty easy to get this deck pretty thin, to where if you get yourself going, then you're kind of drawing as needed throughout the game, especially with your Pidgeot, who's able to basically get you anything, right? And then from there, I mean, the Ho-Oh can hit pretty hard, right? I mean, not extremely hard, where he's going to be one-shotting stage 2s, but potentially, I mean, you can get loaded up with, 6-7 energies, and then you're hitting for 300 plus, and especially using that Kieran. So it can hit pretty hard, especially for a basic Pokemon, right? In terms of weaknesses, though, it can sometimes be tricky to get a second attacker set up, because getting those energy in hand for a second Ho-Oh means you're already oftentimes, like, that's 10 energies. Usually your Exeggutor has 2, Ho-Oh was 4, that's already 6 of our 12. So sometimes we already have them all in hand, and our Exeggutor's knocked out, or other things like that. So it can be a little bit tough. Then from there, remember, Ho-Oh's a basic Pokemon. He's a little bit squishy, is a V especially, so it can be tough. He can get knocked out, he can get one-shot a lot. Right now, too, we're seeing a lot of electric Pokemon come back, with the new Pidgeot Ex, and we've really seen a lot of things like Iron Hands and things like that. So the weakness might get you into trouble if you're really playing against certain matchups right now with the meta. I mean, even Lost Box is playing Pikachu now, so can be a little bit tricky, but you know, we've got that. Hopefully we can just knock him out. And then the other thing is potential for getting hand locked. The only real like draw engine per se is the Radiant Greninja. From there, we have no things like a Professor's Research, Iono, Judge, nothing to draw us cards on demand like that or get out of a bad hand. So if you get these 12 energy and you get too many of them in hand, it can sometimes be an issue with this deck. It's happened to me before. And then from there, just keeping track of your energy, like what's in deck, what's in discard. You know, the worst thing is using your supporter card, using a Lady or using a Crispin, and oh shoot, there's no energies in deck. So you need to make sure that you know where your energy is at all times. You know, is it in deck? Is it in discard? You know, is it pertinent now to use a superior energy retrieval when I only have 2 in discard? Things like that you got to really think about. So those are the real weaknesses of the deck, and you know, in general, it's a really straightforward deck, so your opponent can catch on to what you're doing quickly, and a lot of times just move those Ho-Ohs up and knock them out, and then we're left with not a lot of other options. But don't forget though, I haven't mentioned too much in terms of one of the strengths and weaknesses is that we do have the Reviving Flame ability, right? So if you get in a pinch and you've got a Ho-Oh with 4 different types of energies out there and you can attack this turn, do not be afraid to use that Reviving Flames. I've done it. It's saved me in some matches before. So make sure that you don't forget about the Reviving Flame. It's not our optimal ability to use, but it is an option of an ability to use. Other cards to consider compared to other decks, there's just not a lot that works in this deck, and for other things to think about, there's not a lot of room for switching things out. If you really even change one trainer that you have, it may not work. The biggest one to consider might be the switch. As I said, it wouldn't be the worst thing not to have the Kieran in there and using a switch instead as an item card instead of a supporter to make sure that you're able to use your other supporters, right? So that's an option. Another one to think about, maybe the Energy Lotto. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal an energy, put it into your hand, so kind of gives you the opportunity to fish for those energies without like an Earthen Vessel where you're having to discard, or Lady where you're having to use a supporter card, right? But it does only get you 1, so that's where the downside is. I mean, you could maybe even combine it with other things. I mean, maybe even take the Kieran out and you're just going to get the Energy Lotto and being able to get even more. But again, it's the problem with it is it's not a given either. You might fail that card and then that wouldn't feel good, right? Iono is another one. It's tempting to kind of think about this one for the Kieran, maybe the Crispin, but I think that if you're going to take anything out, the biggest one room for change would be the Crispin, the Kieran, although then you're really going to be locked into what's in your active. So that's an option too. Iono, if you want to get out a bad hand, get your opponent into one. Kofu's another option too. Put the top 2, put 2 cards from your hand at the bottom of your deck, and then you get to draw 4. So it's a solid way of drawing. You are going to see that sometimes there's just cards you don't quite need in your hand for this one, depending on the situation. Like if you've already used your Lady, you don't have energies there, you may not need one of those. Another option is energy retrieval rather than the superior energy retrieval. The discarding 2, I find it's not an issue. As I mentioned, you have a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily need in hand, and getting 4 is better than 2. But if you want to play it safe and not have to discard, the energy retrieval may be an option for you. The Hero's Cape, this was the last second ad for me. I'm still not sure how I feel about it. It does help you get your Ho-Oh to a decent amount of HP. I mean, 330, now he may be able to take a couple shots over just taking 1 or 2. You can even potentially throw it on your Exeggutor, and now he's got 400 HP, while you can kind of tank some hits while you're getting your Ho-Oh ready. So it's something to think about for sure, but I just don't see it as being pulled reliably enough. Additionally, too, you know, we've still got Lost Vacuums to deal with. I mean, now, the last match I played with this deck, there was someone playing Tool Jammer Stadium, so it's like, who does that? But, you know, I think if you're going to get an ace spec, the best one for this deck is going to be that Prime Catcher. It's an item card. You won't be relying on it quite as much to shift, whereas with this, it's kind of something that you really want to pull. So that's kind of what I got, and that's where I'm at with all of this. And that is going to do it for our deck for this time, for our demo. We've got the Halo Ho-Oh deck. Should be a real fun deck to play. It's so different. I mean, I'm a rogue deck enthusiast, as you all know, but this one is just like super rogue. I mean, I think the Arbok may have taken the cake beforehand, but this is even more so. I mean, this is way out of left field. It's probably, admittedly, the least competitive one. Like, if I took this to locals, I might lose every match, you know, but I might not. I mean, it's also better than the initial Ho-Oh deck I took, and I still won some, so it might be. I mean, it's something that I'm still testing out. I've won a few, I've lost a few, I've lost a lot more than I've won right now, but this one's one I've really tinkered around with, so we'll really get to see it in our next video. Make sure you stay tuned, as we're going to put this one in action on TCG Live and see what we got here. So, of course, if you want to join the Hawk's Nest, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're not quite ready to fly, just hit that like button, leave a comment on your thoughts so that we can show up in your feed, get the algorithm to tell you that you're at least considering joining the Hawk's Nest. But if not, until next time, we will see you around with more episodes of the Hawk's Pokemon Nest.